Watching this session streamlined or maybe the recording. My name is Javier Diaz. I'm the lecturer here for Spanish, and I'm here with Tom Power, who is the lecturer for Indonesian and also the coordinator of the B-Lang. At any time, I mean, you've got the QR code on the tables, and now you've got it on the screen. It's a small gathering, so probably we don't need the Slido or anything for questions, but if you feel more comfortable asking any questions using your mobile phones, feel free to type them at any time during the session. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can also sign up anonymously, so you can put in anon or whatever when you join the Slido. That way you don't have to.
Yeah. That's right. The Slido will ask you for some sort of name, but you don't have to declare your full name or anything. Just initials or whatever you want to use will do. Yep.
Okay. Go away.
Well, I mean, thank you all for being here. And as you can see already, I don't know how big the breakup groups were when you separated in different degrees. But probably this was one of the smallest, wasn't it? So welcome to the privileged few, to this minority of students. So this is something that, yeah, probably you're already noticing and what's going on. So welcome, you are in the right, with the right tribe, with the right gang, but it's a kind of small gang. So I suppose that you're aware already, probably some of you, I don't know what kind of support you got from your family and friends when you tell you know what, I think I'm going to do a Bachelor of Languages. What was the reaction that you got? Was it positive, supportive? Was there a little bit of, I don't know, shock perhaps? Or?
I think just confusion. People didn't know what it meant. Like, Bachelor of Languages.
What is it?
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So that's why we thought that, I mean, as we said before, this is a very casual session. We don't need to give you a lot of information that you might not need at the moment, and you've got a lot of of information to digest already. But of course, if you feel confident, probably it's going to be better if you ask us your own questions, right? So at any time. But I suppose that one of the things that we tend to discuss or talk about in these welcome sessions is, well, what is the B-Lang about? I know what I'm doing in the B-Lang. I feel attracted to the B-Lang, but sometimes it's not so straightforward to tell our friends, to explain what the B-Lang is about, let alone what is going to be my job, what job I'm going to get with the B-Lang. So that's why we thought, well, let's talk a little bit about the expectations about the B-Lang. You already told us, you already shared with us that some of you, well, all of you are interested in language or languages at large. Some of you more interested in creative writing or linguistics. Sometimes people are interested in English as a language. Not today. Some people are interested in education. Sometimes people are interested in doing business or traveling, tourism, that kind of stuff. So typically there is with languages, there's an intersection, a very important intersection between language in particular, or languages, and something else. So with the Bachelor of Languages, it's not one of those degrees that lead to already a stipulated profession. You are doing nursing and you become a nurse. You are doing medicine and you become a GP or a doctor. With languages, you are investing in your skills, and then, believe me, I mean, you will get jobs. You won't get the prescribed job 3 months down the track, but you will get jobs maybe 6 months down the track or 8 months down the track.
Well, I would say that one of the big advantages of having a second language, I think everyone here, we're sort of preaching to the choir somewhat,
Yeah.
but having a language doesn't necessarily equip you in that professional way to get certain jobs, but it really enhances CVs, it really enhances resumes. And I think it's also super advantageous to have languages if you're looking to work globally, even if it's not the language used in the country where you're working. Being bilingual or multilingual it's a rare skill set in Australia, and it sets you apart from the crowd in a way that few other skills do, I think. Sorry, Jack, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I might say something, because this came out of applied linguistics, because I'm doing a second major in applied linguistics. They basically, if I want to move down the line of linguistics, they're actually saying a linguist with language skills is more sought after than just plain linguist. And in, say, in creative writing, if you're writing and then being able to translate yourself, you're taking away like the need to sort out someone, which in terms of like publication time, you know, just the reality of things, it means that you've already translated, so you can publish in 2 languages at the same time, things like that.
Also, speaking of the idea of, you know, using creative writing and translation, you can also be taking works that come from the countries that, you know, where the languages that you've learnt are used, taking those works and translating them into English, using the appropriate sort of skills of a creative writer to give them life. And that's very sought after. I'm thinking, you know, lots of French literature that would probably warrant translation into English, and certainly lots of Indonesian literature waiting to be translated. So there are so many ways that you can tie your language skills into, you know, a successful career.
That's right. I suppose that my point, one of the points I was trying to make is that people typically would associate, and for good reason, doing a Bachelor of Languages with becoming an interpreter and a translator. And that's, yeah, as I said, that's understandable. But these days, pretty much any aspect of professional life requires communication, either conveying messages or translating messages or adapting messages of some sort. And those are likely to be, I mean, this is just a guess, but that's likely to be more your future than maybe a future as necessarily as a translator or as an interpreter, also as an interpreter. And as Tom was mentioning, although the demand for languages as such seems to be small at the moment, on the other hand, the demand for linguistic skills and language skills is increasing. So, again, welcome, and I really a very honest welcome to you guys if you decide. I hope that you decide to go through the whole degree, because yes, you are going to be part of a minority of people who are genuinely interested in language, how language works, and how other languages work. So you might need to become comfortable with that kind of sense of being part of a minority. I hope that you don't get questioned because of your choice of studies, but yeah, you're going to find these questions of, well, what can you do with that kind of degree? And we will help you over the next 3 years to find those kind of niches and respond to those questions. But yeah, languages is something that is right now in very high demand for any kind of industry, either creative or community-oriented or service-oriented. Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody has got at this stage any questions.
Yeah, Jared.
I might just add this also. These guys might talk a lot already. But Tom doesn't know this, but I was recently in Indonesia for 2 months, and I share this. So my wife is from Indonesia, so my degree is taking me to be an English teacher in Indonesia. So that's one. But while I was in Indonesia, I actually had opportunity to translate in a children's book. This is where languages can take you. That skill set, just from learning language, can just open up these opportunities. It wasn't a line that I was thinking to go, but it's an opportunity that came about. So that's an advantage of having your language skills there.
Was that a translation from Indonesian into English or from English into Indonesian?
Indonesian to English.
It's really cool. So, I did know you were in Indonesia, I just didn't know it before.
I didn't tell about the translation yet.
It's really cool. Okay, any other questions though from the group? Okay. Has anyone been in a language class previously, whether that's at school or yeah? Yeah, okay.
Was it traumatic?
Some of them, yes.
Okay, so at what level, was that at high school for most of you, or at primary school, I guess extension studies in high school, right, Maxine?
I only did it in primary school, and I switched primary schools, so I did Japanese for the first bit and then French for the second bit,
Yeah.
so I didn't learn anything.
That is a really common story. So many people, because of the way in which our education system works, you would commence in one language in primary school, and then even in the same primary school, suddenly the languages are changed, or you go to high school and it's a different language, or you're encouraged to do one language for a few years and then you get moved into a different language. It's really frustrating.
And they can't do catch up because they've only got one level.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly right.
that's right. Australia suffers this process of start and stop, start and stop, start and stop. There's no continuity with languages. It's kind of, it's not the best. This is one of the reasons why the languages ecosystem is weak.
Yeah.
It's been weak for some decades.
We also don't have much social incentive to learn a second language in Australia because
Yeah.
everything is in English, and I mean, we're an island, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Hence,
That's
we're,
right.
I think, the most monolingual country in the world, or
Yeah.
close to
Yeah,
it.
yeah, one of
Yeah.
them. Yeah, one.
Yeah.
Really?
Even more
Yeah,
monolingual
yeah,
than,
yeah,
than
yeah.
you know, America.
I mean, they've got
Yeah, yeah.
Spanish down.
But let me make that point clear. Monolingual, not monocultural.
Yeah.
Australia is
Yeah.
extremely multicultural.
Yeah.
But the expectation is that people, when it comes to language, they integrate, they use English.
Unless we forget, the majority of people in the world speak more than one language.
Yeah.
Right? How many people in Australia speak more than one language?
The minority.
The minority, yes. That's right. Majority versus minority, yes. No, very true. But most people who speak a second language are coming from, certain cultural backgrounds or linguistic backgrounds that are, let's say, non-English speaking. Very few people who come from English speaking backgrounds are going out and learning a second or third or fourth language. Yeah. It's a big problem now.
I also know people who their parents or grandparents have come from another country and immigrated to Australia, but then they were born in Australia and they never learned their parents' language,
Yeah.
so it was just lost in the generation.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. That's another scenario that is quite typical. The second, especially the third generation of, let's say migrant families, they start questioning, well, why? It's great that we sing the songs, it's great that we cook the meals. Why don't we speak the language? Why don't we have kept at least some of them vocabulary?
And has anyone here done any other languages at university level before? Oh, okay, great. Are those, they're not the languages you're studying now, obviously, would have been different languages?
I did, I studied here, I did first year of Spanish here about a decade ago, and then just stopped studying after that.
Yeah, right, oh, great. So, and you're doing Spanish again, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. And are you, just out of interest, are you studying in the beginner's stream or in the
And then intermediate.
intermediate stream? Great. Okay.
Was that your teacher? No.
No, but you were my topic coordinator.
All right. So who was your teacher at the time? Female, I
So-
suppose.
Yep, so the first semester I had.
It's okay. Don't worry. I was just curious. Yeah. Okay. Just to place you
Yeah.
in time. Yeah, Beatriz. Yeah. Well, welcome back. That's great that you decided to continue to take this class.
Adam,
Yeah,
you also did language previously,
yeah, I
right?
actually did Japanese at university as like a language, because I had lived in Japan for a couple of years as a missionary and Japanese also. That was a long time ago. Language really deteriorates. So I'm gonna skip first year of Japanese and just go to high levels, but filling in some gaps, refresher, all that sort of thing, just kind of make it more complete. That sort of thing. As a minor, but yeah, and this is I haven't done that before.
Oh, good, okay, great. So you're studying the beginners in Indonesian and the intermediate in Japanese. Yeah. Well, that means that in your second year, you sort of would have caught up, I guess, ideally to where you are with your Japanese.
Kind of.
So, well, it's a lot of pressure. Hopefully. Yeah. Okay, that's fantastic. Yeah, yeah.
So, one of the things that I would like to say, if I may, is that, I mean, obviously you know that these days it's easy to learn a language somehow with an application, with courses online, there's materials, and that's great. I suppose that you are here for added reasons. And so this is one of the questions that we had for you, is like, you don't need to answer it now with us in the room, but please let us know, what is your expectation? What would you like to take away with you? And we will try to accommodate it. Probably sometimes we won't be able to. If I may say this honestly, cautiously, but honestly, is that one of the good things that university teaching or learning environment can give you is that it will provide you with a more structured environment. For better or worse, you will be forced to keep up with your studies of language, because there will be an assignment, or there will be an assessment, or you will need to do a role presentation in front of everybody. There's a little bit of pressure on that.
Or even worse, one-on-one. That's even worse.
That's why you will need to talk with your teacher for another exam. Anyway. So I think one of the things that you can take away from this is that, well, you know, I'm learning a language at university, and yes, I'm learning the language, and we're having fun, and we're learning colors, and we're pretending to invite each other to parties or something. That's great, but also actually I'm getting the rudiments of this system, and I'm learning about the connection between this language and the language, or how this language has evolved or hasn't evolved. I'm learning things about language policy in Australia. I'm learning about intercultural communications. So by all means, flag that, I mean, because you will be doing that. And look, at the end of the day, although our fees for languages compared to fees for any of the courses are cheaper, I hope that you notice that you're going to get, if I can say this again with humility, you're going to get a really good product. You're going to get a lot of value for money. But make it to the max, maximize it. Make sure through your student reps or directly to us, well, look, great that you taught us the colors today, but can you tell us something about, I don't know, French history? Or when can I expect that we're going to be taught about that? Because that's the age that I think I like. Sometimes we don't know what we want, right? We don't know, but we might have an intuition. Look, can you tell us more about history? Can you tell us more about linguistics in your language classes? Or can you tell us more about literature? I'm into creative writing. Is there anything that I could be reading already that is relevant because it's good quality, or because this is what French kids are reading in the schools, so I can already connect with what is popular there? So help us provide a good service, a good product for you.
Go ahead, Jared. Shoot.
What RBA is saying is really important too. Like, this is the time where you want to think about, like what you want to use your language for, because it also helps with sequencing the topics over the years. So when you're enrolling, there's topics you can take in first, second, third year, or if you're 4-year degree. But so for me, I had to, it can be done, and you get help around with the colleges and that. You can switch topics around, but sometimes it may mean that the introductory topic is taken later, so it may be flipped around. So if you've got an idea of where you want to go with your degree, look at that now, like once you familiarise yourself with like the enrolments and that, and you can check out the topics. So from first year, this is one of the skills I learned, that you actually have opportunity to look at all your topics over the 3 years. So you can start to piece it together and go, and there's topic information. So that's what I was doing. I was looking at it and going, relevant to what I want to do. So things like that. So I do think about like what Harvey is saying, like what do you expect out of the classes? Where do you think your language, like where you want your language to take you? Think about those things now, because as you're enrolling, particularly like second semester and then second year, you can start to sequence your topics and ask the colleges, is this, can I do this? Can I swap this? Can I do this? What Harvey is saying, think about it now. What do you expect out of the classes?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Maybe something to add to that as well, to what both of you are saying, is you will find when you come into your classes, as Javier indicated before, they tend to be small groups. So Spanish, I think, is currently the biggest language in terms of numbers. You have like
20, something.
say 20 students in a class. Indonesian would be single digits, right? Could be maybe up to 10. It might be as low as like 4 or something in some classes. Very small for some of them. So if you're in those really small groups, you might think, well, this is a little bit difficult because you might not have quite the same scope to engage with a large group of students. I think it can be an advantage. One of the major reasons it's an advantage, in my opinion, is that you can actually tailor what you're studying to the specific interests you have in a way you can't do with 100 people in your class. So let's say, for example, in Jared's case, Jared wants to become an English teacher in Indonesia. It would be possible for Jared to do specific assessments that are geared towards developing the skills he needs for that outcome. Does that make sense? Now, if you had a big cohort, that becomes really hard. You can't have that scope for sort of bespoke study that develops specific skills aside from your language skills. But I think we do have that, and it's not necessarily by design. We're not saying we want to have really small groups, but because we do have small groups, we have that facility at our disposal, to tailor those topics in that way. So I'd say, let your lecturers know early on what you want to get out of your language study. It might just be, I want to learn the language, but it might be, I want to learn the language and I want to do this with it, right? Let people know, let us know.
Yeah, and on that note, I think it's a good time to, just in case you're wondering or you're wishing, if you're wondering, well, how proficient, how fluent will I become after the 3 years? Sometimes to give an answer, honest answer to that question, I usually say, well, when you put together all the hours, the contact hours of classes, plus practice and whatever, the opportunities that you're going to have to talk, probably you're not going to become completely fluent or native, fluent as a native, but you will be extremely well equipped to then start your journey in that country. But that is the minimum, right? From that on, we can build up. It's good, again, I think for you guys to know, even before starting, that we've got some placement opportunities and some in-country opportunities. We will talk about them. I know it might be sounds like a little bit too early, but when it comes to languages, it is very important to factor in a trip, an exchange, and I know that probably, again, for some of you might think, oh, no, there's no way, because I've got these responsibilities, it's time commitment, it's family commitment, I've got all the degrees, all the studies, but it's really important that, if you cannot have that experience, we will be able to help you provide some opportunities to practice the language with local communities. But as much as possible, it would be ideal for you to, let's say, nail or cement your skills with a trip overseas. You would be investing in your future. That said, and this is one of the things that probably we are in a better situation than the likes of Duolingo or the applications in terms of provide, you will be speaking the language from day one. So you will be developing those skills on day one. And by that, I really mean it. It's not that you're going to be responding to a scripted bot or dialogue. It's speaking with another classmate in a situation that is heavily scripted or semi-scripted, but still that is new, somebody's telling you something about their sisters as opposed to about their mother, that means that your brain from day one will need to get switched on to the language and learn to and develop those flexes to respond in real time in language. So you will acquire what we think is an extremely good level of language, especially if you bring the language already from before. If you are accepted or admitted into the intermediate level, after 3 years you would finish with officially an advanced level of the language, which is again something that luckily for us we can offer at this university. Not necessarily that's a possibility in other universities.
I would also mention, so Javier mentioned sort of placements and in-country study. I'd say that I'm not sure about the case for all of our languages, but certainly I'll speak for Indonesian and then you can
No, that's
add
fine.
Spanish.
Or they can ask. I mean,
You can ask. But if you're speaking about the Indonesian program, there'd be scope for you to do a semester abroad, a short course in summer or in winter, or a full year abroad even, and study at an Indonesian university for a semester or even longer. And that also is available with an NCP-funded scholarship. So you can get money from the government to go and study in an Indonesian university, doing Indonesian here. So that, to me, really sets us apart. You can't do it at Adelaide, you can't do it at UniSA. It sets us apart in South
it sounds
Australia.
like we're selling a product, but we're not trying. Right? We just
Effortless.
it's just one of the things. Yeah, we know that actually, well, we do this at Flinders. They don't do it at Adelaide. Yes,
Yeah.
it sounds like we're selling something.
But the reason I was mentioning this, and there is a sort of an educational reason, having that chance to spend time in the country where your language is used, and being forced to immerse yourself. I think Jared can attest to this because you've just come back from NDT for a couple of months, right? So
Yeah.
being forced to immerse yourself in the language, and being forced to apply the skills that you've developed in class or that you have refined in class in a practical context, that is the best way to learn a language. I spent a long time learning Indonesian. I did Indonesian when I was in school. I did a bit of Indonesian at uni and so on. But when I became, I guess, fluent in Indonesian was when I was living in Indonesia. So the more that you use that language across a whole range of contexts that, of course, greatly exceed the contexts that we can role play in class, right? The more you're using language in those challenging situations, the better you'll be. So I'd encourage anyone, if you have the chance to go and do that study abroad or do a tour, or what about in Spanish? What would be for Spanish students? What would be
There are possibilities, and if you have the questions, yeah, we can give you the details.
So
But
regardless of your language, if you have that chance, take it.
I suppose
Take it.
I suppose that I guess one of the messages that we would like to send to you as early as possible, which are, I mean, we all come from different backgrounds and we've got different pathways, but I suppose that typically, and I'm going to give you my example with English. I studied English for quite a long time in Spain, but I did have limited exposure to native speakers. So even after 3 or 4 years of learning the language, I was confronted every time that I had to talk with any native speaker. It was very stressful, partly because I was making a mistake. I was expecting that if I had been coming to class of English for 3 years, surely I had to speak like a native speaker. That was a big mistake. You cannot. But what I learned was that after those 3 years, actually I could survive with native speakers. And that because I had the skills already, my brain switched on and my English improved. Well, maybe not that much. but I noticed that those years equipped me to then learn on my own very, very quickly. So that would be the journey for you. But it would be even better if, as we were saying, if you take advantage of whatever opportunity you have to put your skills to practice, because then it would be far less stressful and it would be far more enjoyable. You will go further. And yeah, there's a number of opportunities to go overseas. So, The universities, all universities offer, at the very least, short programs. Basically, you go to the country and spend 4 to 6 weeks. You go in summer, you go in winter, in between semesters, and you come back, and depending on what you've done, you may or may not get credit for it.
Yeah.
Pros, it's only 6 weeks. It's like a holiday. And it doesn't disrupt your, let's say, your degree, your progression through the degree. Cons, well, you have to pay your fares, your airfares, and it's expensive, and accommodation, and it's only 6 weeks. Just the moment when you started to have real fun, you have to come back. The second option is to do an exchange program that goes for 6 months, for a semester, depending on what you're studying, and that's why it's important to start thinking about these things as soon as possible. You may say, well, if Flinders has got an exchange program with, let's say, I'm going to use, if that's okay, an example from the United States, with an university in Texas. So they speak English, but at the same time, half of the population speaks Spanish, and the border is just 300 km down south. So it's really around the corner. Mexico's around the corner. So maybe I could continue my studies in creative writing in English and do 2 or 3 subjects there in my normal subjects, but I'm going to do my Spanish or my French in Canada or my Japanese in Japan inside, and I'm going to be there for 6 months. So you get credit for that. We need to discuss the details, but also it's just that you're just boosting your language so much that then you come back and resume your second year, your third year, and you just cruise. I know it sounds daunting, it sounds expensive, and you might say, well, I don't know, I don't know if I want to do that. That sounds stressful. There will be good and bad days, but it's probably the best thing that you can do in terms of investment in your language skills development.
I think so.
And there's other options.
But
there's more
I
options.
should mention, it's not essential. Like, this is not, I'm not saying if you don't do an exchange, then you're going to struggle. No, not at all. What I'm saying is, if you do an exchange, that really helps you to cement those practical skills. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I mean,
Don't want to like scare
Makes
people
sense
off
to me.
who don't plan to do an exchange. Yeah. One of the, oh, sorry, Jared.
I might just, because I did mention about like higher.
Yeah.
So there are other options. So these are sort of like outside university, but it maybe if you can't commit to like a full exchange or going overseas, look at the communities outside of university that you can engage into. So Aya, for instance, for the Indonesian is there are some that are leading that program that were students. I think there's still a current student here that started a program outside, and they've linked it in with uni. So current students can go to, say, like study, going to a cafe and studying together, or going to a restaurant and practicing your language skills. So there's groups around that set those things up too. So particularly for Indonesian, I'm not sure.
No, thanks for that comment. I'm pretty sure that you want to add something to that as well. Just quickly, because I think I was forgetting. There's also a languages club.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you don't want to memorize, any of the details today, if you just hook up with them, not only you will meet a bunch of interesting people who are on your same network, but also you can just go with them with whatever events they organize, and there will be students that have been doing languages for a couple of years more than you, and they know about all these opportunities, and they will be shared with them.
And as student rep, that's where you can email me and go, what do you know about the clubs around or things like that, and I'll be happy to help.
There's something else I wanted to talk about, which are our culture topics. I think this is perhaps something we should mention. So you would have seen, I'm guessing, if you have looked at your planner over the course of your major, that you have language topics. Well, obviously language topics, it would be Spanish or SPAN 1, 2, 1, SPAN 1, 2, etc. Indo 121, etc. Okay, so that's your language study, but you also have topics that would be maybe Spanish cinema or Indonesian society and culture, right? There'd be these other topic names. You might be thinking, what is that? Okay, the culture topics are designed to give you, and they're mostly taught in English. I think there are some in certain languages that are taught in the language.
It's just it's a little bit of a long story. They've been evolving for a number of years, and the shift is now to offering them more and more in English. They used to be in language.
They used to be in language. They're designed now in English in order to appeal to students who might not be doing the language.
That's right.
So there might be students who they're interested in learning about, say, Spanish cinema, but they don't speak Spanish, right? So it's made available to everyone. Now, the purpose of those is typically to equip you with some knowledge that is relevant to the country that uses the language you study. Okay, so for Indonesian, we have Indonesian politics and development, and we have Indonesian culture and society. So the reason that those two sort of broad areas are our areas of focus is that a lot of people who learn Indonesian are interested in the politics of Indonesia. They're interested in the international relations between Australia and Indonesia, right? No, not Maxine so much, right?
Are they going to like the music class? I see all the instruments, they're still there, they're just
Yeah,
sitting
I
there
know,
gathering
I
dust,
know.
but they're not doing the Indonesian musical.
I know, they're not doing musical cultures, I know.
Why not? It's there.
Do you know the reason?
Why?
The reason is that for several years they had 3 enrollments and it was just getting cancelled again and again and again. So the enrollments were too small because if we want to play gamelan, we need about 8 people for the orchestra. Without that, you just have gong, ding, gong. Very bad.
Which I love, but
Yeah. Have you ever
because I'm
joined
into
a class?
minimalistic stuff, but
Yeah.
it's too minimalistic for
Yeah.
most people.
Very avant-garde, perhaps. interpretation.
You,
So I agree with you.
you can go from gong to xylophone.
It would be great to have it available again, but I don't think the university is prepared at the present time to revive it simply because they expect the numbers are too small. So I apologize.
Which is, well, I may say, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not the expert in Indonesian, but that doesn't mean that you cannot play
Yeah.
with the community
The
group
community group, yeah.
that makes use of the pendopo.
Yes. So students, I would encourage students who are doing Indonesian, and in fact anyone, if you're interested in learning gamelan, there's a community group that meets every Wednesday night. Has anyone seen the pendopo already? You have? Okay. It's really cool. It's the only pendopo at a university in Australia. It's a Javanese, what we call like a traditional house, okay? And inside there's a gamelan orchestra. Anyway, Maxine is interested in playing that. You can play it, but it can't be like a topic that you get credit for. We do have a little bit on gamelan, and we can come here for the music, for the culture and society topic. But it wouldn't be like the whole topic.
I think we could work it out for you to get credit to learn how to play the gamelan.
Should get
Maybe.
like high school students to do it, like as like a
Yeah.
topic for them, because a lot of them would be.
We bring high school students
that's right,
in
they
to
come.
do it.
Yeah.
Ava came to do that, I think, last year.
Yeah, I'm thinking of Lang 3000. I mean, this is probably starting to get, if not already, very boring for you, to maybe too much
Sorry.
information. But yeah, Lang 3000 would be potentially a topic that we can use to.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea to learn some gamelan theory, and you could. So that's another thing you can do. You might have a study planner that looks quite rigid. Generally speaking, there is flexibility. If there's something you don't want to do, let's say Maxine says, I do not want to do politics. I hate politics. I'm not interested. Get that Suharto crap out of my life, right? Okay. So she wants to do gamelan instead, and instead of doing Indo 2005, she does Lang 3000, and she gets credit for doing something separate, a different project. Maybe you can do that.
I don't know about you guys. I think I managed to cover the things that I wanted to flag early on. But I don't know, maybe you have some questions in general about the degree, or you might have some questions about your individual languages. I don't want to interrupt the flow. I'm quite happy for me to stop here. And if you want to ask any questions about Spanish, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, sure. Questions about anything, really. It can be specific to your language, it can be about
Well, not about anything. But don't ask me about, I don't know,
quantum
my love
physics
life or,
something.
or quantum mechanics. questions, comments?
We've just been so thorough.
So are you excited? Are you what, worried about something? No? Anything that you want to ask about the degree?
I know you guys aren't doing French, so I don't know how relevant this is, but I do want to know, so are the classes taught in English or in language?
The language classes are taught in language.
Okay.
I'm not sure about the French culture topics. I think that some of them have some more.
I mean, yeah, let's wait for your French teachers to answer that question with precision. But I would say that I'm confident that we more or less do something similar. First year classes tend to be, let's say, half and half.
Okay.
For practical reasons. Guys, this is an assignment. When you say that in German, that's not fair. Second year, we're talking about 70-30.
Okay.
So it's more like, okay, I'll say that now in English, just so we're all on the same page. That kind of stuff. And in third year onwards, it's just I would always say 100% in the target language, but a good 90-95%. And the good thing is nobody is flinching. It's just an organic, a very natural progression. Yeah. But yeah.
Maybe to answer that question as well, has everyone got their study planner already? You have if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's okay. But it would generally tell you what topics you take when in your degree. And if you don't have it, you can make it quite easily. Okay, so I think, Jared, you were saying you can look at your whole degree and see it planned out from basically day one.
So I think if you search up your degree, there'll be a link you can click study planner. And basically what it looks like is like an A4 sheet with squares with your topic names in it. And it'll say year 1, year 2, year 3. So that's the study planner.
So it looks something like this, and then you have, like semester 1 and semester 2 for each year. Now, let's say you're doing major in French, and you're starting as a beginner?
No,
Intermediate, okay. So you're going to be doing this semester Fren 2201, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then next semester is Fren 2202. And as Abby said, you're probably going to use mostly French, but there'll be some English just to clarify things, probably some discussions of a grammatical point. Maybe it need to be in English rather than in French because otherwise the point will be lost. Okay. Once you get into year 2, you'll be doing Fren 3201 and 3202. Okay, that's what we call upper intermediate language. And because you're in that intermediate stream, in year 3, your language will be Lang 3001 and Lang 3002. And at that point, you will be returning to a cohort with all languages. Okay, but you will still be taught in your separate languages in your seminars. But you'll be in a topic with students from all languages enrolled. Make sense?
Yeah, the cohort is managed for the 5 languages altogether, but you have your separate classes in French, and that is advanced French, and that is certainly 110% in French.
Yeah, that's all. You're just using the language the whole time. One is language for advanced language for interaction. One is advanced language for translation. Actually, with the translation, there is some English because you're translating between the languages. Anyway.
Yeah,
Anyway.
that is just, I mean, if there is, let's say, some sort of a scaffolding of language in terms of using the classroom and the materials that are brought to class in first year, second year, and to an extent third year, that level is just the real deal. It's just the books, the real books, the films.
Yeah. So you're watching a movie in French, you're reading a short story or a passage in French or whatever, right? It's really applying your language to basically engaging like a native speaker in culture, okay? So you can see that is...
And again, it's not that you're expected to produce at that level, it's that, yeah, you're ready.
Yeah.
You're more than ready to cope
Yeah.
with language without any treatment, without any filtering.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can see that's 6 topics. Now for a major, you have 8 topics, right? This might be new to some people. You might not have ever sort of encountered this explanation before. Maybe you have. But a language major, you have 8 topics. Now you can see this is 6. What about the other 2? Typically, the other 2 are going to be your culture topics. Now, I don't know what the codes would be for the French culture topics off the top of my head.
There could be friend something. Anyway.
It's friend, whatever.
Maybe 2211 or 2212, something like that.
Well, that would be the language ones. Those would be the language ones. Friend 2211.
No.
Oh, 2211, yeah. Could be friend. That's right. But let's say you might be doing, in year 2, you might be doing 2 culture topics, or maybe one of these you end up doing down here or something, right? However it ends up working in your timetable, in your plan of study, you'll end up doing 2 culture topics as well. And then you have you're doing double major, is that right? Creative writing? Okay, you'll have the same with creative writing. So you'll have all of these, and then maybe it's here and here, creative writing. And then you have your option topics or electives or whatever, filling out the rest. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, let's say you were doing an exchange for credit. You might say, I'm going to do my exchange in my second semester of my second year. Is it possible for me to replace these 2 topics with credit from my exchange? Probably yes. And that would typically go to could be the course coordinator, it could be your discipline, like your language coordinator. So it could be to, say, Christelle or Eric or whatever, right? And there might be some things you can't get credit for. Maybe you can do a creative writing topic on exchange as well. Okay, but there might be a little bit of stuff left over, and then you might say, okay, I'm going to use a summer semester short course to get credit there, and I can still finish my 3. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I suppose that one of the points being, yes,
It's
every
flexible.
day is a lot of information, lots of things to think about. But one of our messages is, don't leave the potential decision of going overseas or doing an exchange program or something for later in the future, because before you know it, second year will be here. And before you know it, you will be already interested in some opportunities for after graduation. So it might not happen if you are not already planning for it somehow. That's it.
Yeah. Anyway, it can be a lot of information to take aboard, but it helps to plan it out ahead of time.
Yeah, and don't hesitate. I really mean it. Don't hesitate to tell us, to ask us if we don't have the time or we don't know how to give you a straight answer when you ask us. We will put you in the right direction. Sometimes, in some cases, it might involve talking with teachers and administration from languages and people and administration from psychology or education or whatever. So it might take a little bit of time and patience, but we will help you there as much as possible.
Yeah. Any other questions anyone has?
I was just going to say, but I won't go into details, that if worse come to worse, I mean, it's not a bad thing if you cannot go overseas during your degree, but if you, for whatever the reason, prefer not to or you can't, there's also opportunities after graduation.
Yeah.
All right? We will talk about those at some other time.
When you graduate.
No,
At some point later on.
before that. Yeah, probably in Indonesian as well, but for those of you studying Spanish, you will see an announcement from me in the next, 2-3 days. And it's inviting you to an information session about going to Spain after graduation. And even when you haven't even started with the language, I would say, go now, because you get the information now. And that way, if that's an option for you, you can already factor that program in your radar. Yeah.
Fantastic. Do we have any other questions at all? I think everyone's probably looking to just get out of the room.
So we're nice people, but we're not
We
that
talk too
nice that
much.
they want to spend a whole 60 or 90 minutes with us.
Yeah.
Not today, at least.
No, next week. All right, guys. I think we can probably wrap it up there. Thank you so much for coming. It's just fantastic to meet you all ahead of the start of semester, and I look forward to seeing a couple of you in class next week, and probably seeing the others around campus. Thank you very
Good
much.
to have you here. And again, we'll stay around for a few more minutes. If you
Yeah.
have any